I don't want to cut off a little bit and have a little wasted bit, so I've cut 3 inches, so that's going to be the tailboard, this is going to be the headboard, and I've just marked off with my pencil to round off the top. So what I'm doing is I have scored it carefully with my blade and just go over it a few times to just have it go deeper and deeper. And then I'm sort of nibbling at it, and you will find you can nibble at it. Don't try and do a great long chunk. Go across the grain first, and as you break the fibres, then you will be able to nibble a bit more off. So then you can go sort of like sideways on and nibble that little bit off. So it hasn't got to be, you know, a great long slice that you take off. And I know I'm all for saving bits and pieces of wood, and it's amazing where they come in useful for. I'm not going to save these little tiny nibblings. So I will carry on nibbling away, and I will show you the next stage when I do it. When you've got 2 pieces of wood that you want to have the same profile, so I want the top and the bottom of the bed to look like they are a pair, they do fit together. So take them together with some masking tape, and then you can sand them together, and you'll get a nice match really for the shape. If one side is a bit lower than the other, they're both slightly lower than the other, and then, you know, it all depends on the angle in the room as to whether or not it really is noticeable. So don't give yourself too much of a hard time about it. Go gently with your sandpaper. So I've got a fairly coarse sandpaper here, and going with the grain initially just to take off the edge. I'm going to have to trim that because I've got a scraggy bit down the bottom there. And then I used 320, a much finer grain afterwards, to smooth that off. So now I'm going to undo this tape and turn them around, so then I can do the other side, and this side doesn't have to be as chamfered, but I still want it smoothed off. So where are we? That's that side with that side. No, that side on the outside. And then you'll be able to get a nice finish on the top, and well, on the top of both ends, the header and the footer. So this side needs some smoothing off, so I'm going to start with this coarser paper first, just to get that softened a bit. It is a messy job. You might want something on your lap to catch the dust. Don't wear your best trousers or whatever when you're doing this. So I'm going to go gently with this and do some more. I'm making the bed for Bramble Cottage, and it just occurred to me I'd started painting, and I thought I haven't done a video. So this is, I'm working very much from memory from the bed my mum and dad had all of their married life. Well, virtually all of their married life, from when they could afford to buy a bedroom suite, a nice bedroom suite, as you did in those days, a long, long ago, that would last you forever. So it had a headboard and a tailboard. I'll show you those in a second. And then there was like a structure that the mattress went on. Now I can't remember what this structure was like, but I'm taking a guess it'd be pretty much like this. And it was probably cast iron, blinking heavy. But what I've done is I've measured, so I'm doing, for the width of the bed, I'm doing 4 inches, 4 foot. This is a small double because it's a small attic bedroom. So it's a very small double, but cozy. And I'm doing 6 inches long, just over 6 inches long. So that's sort of equivalent to 6 foot. And what I've done is I've made a structure with a head and a base that's going to hook on, an end each way to this framework that's going to hook on to the header and the footer of the bed, and then just some slats. Now I'm painting this black to sort of look like cast iron, and the headboard, I've just got this clamped up. I can take these off now because the glue will have dried. Now this has only got one coat so far of English light oak on it, and I wanted it to be quite plain and simple. These are proper wood rather, these are doweling, so this could be pine, this is obèche wood, and I wanted it quite plain. So this is, as you look at the tailboard, I want the bedding to be the star of the show, as it were. These are little wooden beads that I've stuck on the top there, and I put in some wood filler. So these I've got to sand off yet, and I've got to give this a couple more coats of paint, of stain, wood dye. And on the other side, I have done a little ledge with a little thin strip of wood that the framework is going to sit on. So that is the headboard, and I've chosen the nicer side to look at. So the not so nice side, that's just where it's leant on the tray while it was drying, but the not so nice side is going to go against the wall, not be seen. And I did the same thing with the tailboard, except for it's slightly shorter. I put clamps on these bars, which has also helped to straighten out the wood because there was a little slight kink in it. And this is 3mm thick wood, same principle as the headboard. The outside of the baseboard, the bit you're going to look at, is the nicer end. So that's going to, I will glue this, but it could rest, but it'll be glued. Normally it would, I seem to remember it had nuts and bolts and stuff that held it into place. So that's that. Just well, that's going to be painted black because that's got a bit of wet black paint on it. I will sand these a little bit more before I stain them again. I've made the start of a very basic mattress. I may well replace this mattress at some point, but I want to sort of get cracking with the bedding. So I made the mattress the same way as I made a mattress for Ashton Place, the townhouse. So just with wash-up sponges on a piece of paper. This needs trimming off, now it's all dried. And then I will cover this with ticking kind of fabric, which is the same as in the other video that I did. And I say I may well replace this and make a proper mattress casing and fill it with wadding and stuff like that later on. I'm not sure at the moment. I'm just eager to get on with sheets and blankets and covers and pillows and things. But this will do for now. Yeah, so anyway, that's where we are with that. Hello, lovely. Today I'm making a mattress for this bed frame that I've bought. I'm hoping this will be for Bramble Cottage, but it might actually be a little bit too big. Don't know. I'm going to dress it and make it, and then I will decide. I might need to make a small double to fit in that little attic space better. But anyway, whichever, I want to make this mattress and dress the bed. So this is a frame. I really wanted a metal frame, and so this is the one I chose. It's the same size for head and foot, so it wouldn't matter which way around you have it. Throw it around. I'm sorry if there are shadows here because I am doing this in my kitchen and the light is going a bit, so I'm using electric light. But anyway, we will carry on. So what I'm going to do is make a mattress with, I'll show you what in a minute, with these. So these are wash-up sponges. They're not the best quality. There's some that we had bought from Lidl, and really they're not very good as wash-up sponges. But if you take off the green scratchy bit, they're actually the perfect depth for a mattress. So that is just under 2 centimetres. It's about 3/4 of an inch depth. Now I've looked for foam around about my local stores without ordering any online, but in my local fabric shops, and I can't get anything smaller than 1 inch thick, and I don't want it that thick, so I'm having to make do. So I'm using this. It does make it really quite dusty and messy tearing these off, but hey ho. What I've done is I've made a paper. So this is very thick, heavy duty wallpaper lining paper, but you could use any paper or card just as a backing for this. And I've measured this, and it's about, so that is 6 3/4 inches from headboard to tailboard. So the mattress I'm making is about 6.5 inches, and this from side to side is 5 inches, so that would be 5 foot. So I wanted to reduce it slightly so that when the bedding is tucked under the mattress, it's not sitting too hugely proud. So this is about 4 3/4 inches wide, so that's equivalent to 4 3/4 feet. So I'm going to use this side, and I'm going to use my wood glue, my normal glue, to stick these on. And I've done a rough calculation, and I think 3 down, and then if I cut this other one into thirds, that will do for down the side here. I know we've got gaps, but actually by the time I've covered it in sheeting, it's going to be fine. And what I'm using for sheeting is this. It's cotton that I got. So this is from one of the fat squares, they call them, for patchwork. But it's got a very slight stripe in it. Now, if you remember ticking, I remember ticking from my youth, this would have been more blue, more sort of like an indigo blue, but mattresses were covered in ticking, and often the pillows were covered in ticking as well. So it was sort of like a heavy duty cotton that would be used to keep the feathers in and stuff. So this is actually, it's Tilda Classic Basics Collection Pen Stripe, it's called. But I saw it and I thought, that's pretty good, because I have looked around and I couldn't see any other anything else that would work as ticking. So I'm going to cover my mattress in this. I'm going to take the green scratchies off. I'm going to glue them on here, and I will show you where I'm at. So I have cut my fabric. This is still drying, but it's on its way. And what I'm going to do is, ooh, a bit more than I had thought there. I'm going to, don't need it at the corners actually, but there we are. Sploshed it on, and this is why I have put it on paper. the sponge on paper. Now what I'm going to do, because I don't know how much it's going to stay in place, I'm using pins to like skewer the fabric in place. And then I will do the same at this end, hopefully not going all over the corners. What I've got actually possibly is more on one side than on the other. It doesn't matter, because I'm going to put a backing bit over this. Again, I will skewer it. Fortunately, I don't do any what I'd call posh dressmaking these days. I remember when I was young and we were making bridesmaid dresses for, I can't remember which wedding it was, somebody's wedding that we were bridesmaids for, and Mum insisted upon buying new pins because she said some of the pins in her stack were all so old, they were getting a bit ratty-tatty. So new pins were bought. Now if I was going to be making something really stunningly beautiful with fabric, I would be buying new pins after these, or I would be keeping these pins separate possibly. I'm loath to cut into that while it's wet glue because I don't want glue all over these scissors. So how am I going to do this? Let's go there. It's a bit like wrapping a Christmas parcel. And if you've got a funny shape or something, you just have to go with it. I personally love wrapping parcels. Don't really do Christmas, but I love wrapping parcels. So, ugh, glue all over my fingers. Let's see if I can neaten up that corner a bit. And this is why you don't want the mattress to be absolute maximum size that you can have for your bed frame, because you've got to allow space for the covering of your mattress, and never mind your bed covers. That is, well, it depends on what sort of bed you want. For the bed that I'm doing, I want space for all that because I like to do a bed as authentically as I possibly can. And I will be making sheets and blankets and all sorts. But you may have guessed that if you know what I'm like. It's not going to be perfect. Don't worry about it being perfect, because it's going to be covered by things. But it's a fine line between being authentic and worrying about being perfect. I'm going to leave that there because that's gluey. Let's put some more glue on this bit. Ugh, yes, I should have trimmed that off maybe first. There we are, all over my kitchen table. I can hear in my head about hospital corners. Do hospital corners. I had siblings who were nurses, and Mum had worked in hospitals and stuff when we were younger, so we all learned all about hospital corners, which is a neat way of folding the sheets in, really. But I don't know that we're going to be getting hospital corners on the mattress today. And I'm just using my normal wood glue. You can use any glue, but it is on, you're gluing to paper, so that would be fine. This wood glue I can feel is actually sticking very well. Okay, let's take a bit of that. This is where it's a bit creased. I probably could have done with ironing that first, but I didn't. So how's that looking? That's all right. That's okay. Oozed a bit there. That corner is not as I would like it. Let's take that corner out and see if I can improve on that. Ugh, ugh. When I come in from doing doll's house work and I wash my hands, I have to spend ages just getting glue and things off my hands before I start cooking. All good fun. But what I'm going to do when this is dried, I'm going to stick a piece over the back there just to give that a covering, and I'll give that a little steam when I've got the iron out, just to take that crease out. But let that dry, see how it looks. Bedding. Let's talk bedding, and I'm doing 2 beds, dressing 2 beds simultaneously, just because it's easier with getting the fabric out, sewing, pinning, ironing and all of that. So this is the bed that I'm going to be using for Ashton Place, the townhouse. I really wanted a metal bed. It's got a little bit of an obble wobble on its legs. I can remedy that. I won't try and bend it or anything. I'll put some little something underneath one of the legs to level it up. I've made a mattress. This is out of thin sponges. I will show you that I'll show you that. And I've covered it in a sort of a ticking look kind of material. I'm sorry about the slight shadow here. We're in my kitchen today and I haven't got the best lighting, but we will do our best here. So I folded all the fabric over and stuck a bit of material on the back. So it's like a little parcel of spongy stuff. So that fits in. You want to make your mattress a bit smaller than you think you're going to need, because you need space to tuck the bedding in around. So let's move that one out of the way. This is the bed frame that I have made for Bramble Cottage, slightly taller at the head than the footboard. And this is based on, the style is based on the bed that my mum and dad had for many, 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 many years. Hate to even think about it, but I might have been conceived in this bed, but there we are. And we'll move swiftly along out of that visual. But it was a very old oak bed with a cast iron frame, as far as I remember. And I do remember it being taken apart because we did move several times as a family when I was a child. So I do remember beds being taken apart and reassembled and the whole shenanigans of moving house. I've made a mattress, and the first one I made was longer than this. I'm concerned that it was a bit too long, because this frame that I've got stuck onto the head and tail board, I realised is quite fragile. It's not quite as robust as sorry, that's the cat jingling if you can hear his bell. Is not quite as robust as would be ideal. So I don't want to put extra pressure on it by making the tucking in thing of bedding too tight. So anyway, it'd be fine. It'd be absolutely fine. By the time the bedding's tucked in all around, it will be marvellous. So let's work with the rustic Bramble Cottage first. Again, I've done a little parcel mattress with wash-up sponges. And this is just covered in some white cotton. And what I want to have the opportunity to change the bedding from time to time. I don't want to make it once and it always be the same. And then I've got some very thin white material. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think it's got a bit of synthetic-y something in it. It's not cotton lawn. I looked at the cotton lawn and for some reason I chose this instead. It's got a nice drape about it, but by the reaction with a hot iron, it's got some synthetic in it, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do for the bottom sheet is I'm going to fold this over and I'll parcel it up, and I'm just going to put some tacking stitches between the top and the bottom. I'll fold it all in neatly, and I'm just going to tack it so that it doesn't come undone as I'm assembling the bedding. And then I have cut another bit of fabric, and this one, oh, I've got a crease in it already. I'm using the edge of the material, so this is going to be tucked under, so I don't need to hem that one. I've hemmed, I've turned in and hand stitched around the other 3 edges, and this is a fatter edge at the top, fatter turning. What I'm going to do with the Ashton Place top sheet is I'm going to put in a bit of a pretty coloured running thread along the top there, just for a bit of detail. So when you see that, that's what it's going to be, a little bit of thread detail. And I'm basing the bedding on what I grew up with as a child. Now, bearing in mind, my parents were in their 40s when they had me. I'm the youngest. And my dad's parents were in their 40s when they had him. So our bedding habits, for want of a better phrase, probably stem back from grandparents. My grandparents were a lot older than a lot of other people's grandparents, but I'm basing the bedding, I say, on what I grew up with. So it's going to be sheets and blankets. There's nothing going to be fancy swaggy about pillow decoration and all of that with it. I've got some lovely blankets, and I've got bedspreads and eider downs, which I will come to when I've got those. So I will get on with the sheets and then show you where I'm at. Blankets. So this little bed for Bramble Cottage is a small double. This is a normal double size, equivalent of, you know what I mean, scaled. And for this one, I wanted a blanket that looked sort of a little bit worn and weathered, but maybe a bit of colour in it. So I got a length of this. This is a cotton and linen mix. And you can see I've washed it and I have ironed it, but I like the way that it's got quite an open weave, but it just reminded me of blankets. Blankets from my childhood, which were sometimes a bit worn, but they were pure wool. So although they'd lost their fluff, they were still very warm. And all I've done with this one is, in line with the threads, I've actually trimmed it off, and I frayed this top bit a bit, because I thought if I try and turn it and stitch it, it's going to create so much bulk. But the way it sits in Bramble Cottage, this is the side that they would get in. If you're on this side and against the wall, well, then you've got to scramble over the end. And this other bed, so this is the one for Ashton Place. And for this blanket, I have used a bit of an old flannelette sheet or brushed cotton, depending on what you call it. When I was a kid, we used to have flannelette sheet, but they're often called brushed cotton. So it is pure cotton. They are quite warm and thick and cozy in the winter, but it's got that extra little bit of fluffness about it. This is an old one that was very worn in the middle, and when I was giving it its final wash before using it for dust sheets or whatever, I suddenly thought, oh, blanket. So I've cut off the corner of it. The rest has gone into dust sheets, but this bit has gone for my blankets. I won't be selling these because they are worn bedding, although they have been very well washed. So there are the two blanket options that I'm using. And just to give you a little preview of what else I've got going on bedding wise, I wanted a blue blanket on this because I wanted to crochet a mini quilt bed cover. This is with #1 needle, so it's a little bit big. The proportion is a bit off. What I've also done, so that is deliberately to fit the small double. I've also done, now is it funky hippie rainbow or is it pride? I don't know, you can decide. But I wanted to have a go at rainbow. And this is with embroidery thread. So you know how you get the skeins of embroidery thread? Well, with each thread, it's made up of 6 tiny little threads. So this is micro crochet, but it was a good practice for me. I've learned a lot from the process, thoroughly enjoyed it. The black plays havoc with your eyes if you're trying to do that, but anyway, a little bit of black in here and there is good and just breaks up the rainbow a little bit. So that's one of the things I've got going on. I've also made, see, when you're going to do small crochet, it's a lot easier to keep working your way down with the sizes. So from a normal size, this is a vintage pattern that somebody found for me from a vintage out of print book, and this is shell pattern, which would fit very lovely on a double bed, and also in the same scale as this, so it's sort of mini scale, is a blues and whites, little cream bit in the center. So I'm working on it, and I have gone smaller and smaller. So I started off with this size from a normal size crochet, went down to this size, now I'm on this size. So this is with 0.4 size hook. So I've done the 1, done the 5, and this is 0.4. So once you get in your rhythm, it's great, but it is a bit of a learning curve for the old muscle memory initially. Anyway, happy bedding.